Okay, Mike Scott, the UK 5,000 metre indoor record holder, probably well, you are the British 10,000 metre champion in 2021, and yeah, perhaps you are what comes after Mo Farah. But thanks very much for joining us, Marc. Hopefully you're in good form after the Great North Run. Well recovered?
I am. Yeah, things are going well. And yeah, like you say, it would be a good person to follow along the footsteps in alongside Mo or onwards from him. Yeah, I've just recently obviously come off the couple of half marathons I've done, and going to do a 10K here on Sunday in Manchester, and then moving on from that, I'm going to do a little bit of pacing at London Marathon too.
Okay, and you're based in the UK now, so I think December you said. Then you're going to head back to your Jerry Schumacher base with your coach.
Yeah, back to base training for the winter. Typically just a cross country standard build up. We don't really do a lot of cross country anymore, but more so just getting the winter base work in, which translates well into the next year, where there's a big year coming up with the World Championships, European Championships, and also Commonwealth Games. So yeah, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break after London, just reset, and then yeah, head out back to my group and my coach and get things underway again.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, next year there's a lot on, isn't there? The World, the Europeans, Commonwealth Games. Have you decided on your priorities yet, or will that be decided closer towards Christmas?
Yeah, haven't decided quite yet. I do want to do all three if possible. It might not mean doing my standard 5K, 10K double at all three, just because that'd be a lot within the 5-week period. But obviously the major one is the World Championships, and that's the one what comes first. So it's just about prioritizing where I think I can get the most out of myself, and if there's a possibility for a medal at the Commonwealth Games or even the Europeans, then that's something which would be high on the list too. But obviously going to a major championship like the Worlds is usually foremost, and it's usually at the top of the rankings behind obviously the Olympic Games. So
yeah, I know as somebody who's not been at that standard, I sometimes think, you know, do you look at your legacy when you're an old man as a European medal, Commonwealth Games medal, or World Championship medal? And clearly, you know, the Europeans would be the easiest medal out of the three. But you know, obviously a medal at the World Championships would be great. And I guess you'll know that how well you winter and how things go there. But yeah, big decisions to be made. But yeah, so just looking back actually on you know where you started, because I've known you, I don't know, it feels like forever, but
yeah, it's been a long time now. Yeah.
How old were you when I met you? I'm guessing 16, but it might have been younger.
I think I might have been younger. Yeah, I don't know when I kind of got into the mountain fell running background sort of thing, but it was a long time ago now. Yeah, obviously I'm 27 now, nearly 28, so at least 10, 12 years, I'd say.
Wow. And hopefully I've not changed a bit.
No, you haven't actually. You haven't.
Well, I think your eyesight's going there, Marc. So we'll move on rapidly. We'll move on rapidly. So I mean, this year you had a vintage year. Was it 1305 indoors? Oh, sorry, that was last year, wasn't it? 1306 indoors.
Yeah, I've run 1308 indoors and then 1305 outdoors this year. But 1308 was last year, yep.
And then 2710 over 10,000, and I saw that on stream, and I kind of thought to myself, there's a good bit more under the tank there. You know, I mean, how did you feel at the end, and how much is left in the tank?
Yeah, I think there is a bit more in the tank. Just the way we paced that race was all designed just to run 27:28, which was the Olympic standard at the time, just because we wanted a group of our guys to hit the standard at Bowerman Track Club and then go forward from there to the Olympic Games. So that was always the plan. and we actually came through on perfect pacing. So we came through, I think, exactly as we wanted through halfway, and didn't really get moving until the last 2K. We had pacemakers until 8K. So it's basically just like a time trial, and I kind of took it upon myself to do the running after the pacemaker dropped, and I think there's definitely at least 10, 11 seconds in there looking at what I did that night. But the conditions were perfect and everything went perfect on the night. So, but yeah, I think I could break 27 minutes on the right night. It just depends if you get those opportunities again. But at the Bowman Track Club, we are pretty focused on reaching our potentials and doing that sort of thing and seeing what we can get out ourselves amongst our teammates. So I'm sure there will be an opportunity in the future.
Yeah, and that'll be an exciting time for us guys. And thinking about year on year, what would you say it is that brings you on year? You know, I mean, you did 27:10 this year. What's going to bring you down to 26:45 next year or 26:50?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just more so of stringing years together without having any major disruptions. That was just kind of the issue I ran into for the last few years. Like the last 18 months have been pretty good, but before that, I was just running into injury after injury, just maybe just doing a little too much at that moment in time for me. Just when you've got guys who I know I'm going to be competing against on the world stage and the Olympic stage, just in my team, for example, who are running 100, 120 miles a week, and you kind of think that's what you need to be doing in a sense, so you can compete with those guys on the given day. But everyone's different and everyone's come from a different background. So for me, it's just about stringing these years together and not having, like I said, any disruptions. Minor things here and there are always going to crop up, but it's just the big things like a stress fracture or which take you out the game for a little bit of time, which does actually set you back more than you probably realize.
And just touching on those, you know, the injuries and the niggles. Are there any particular ones that tend to affect you, or are there any reasons why you might pick them up?
Yeah, for me personally, it's a lot of how I run. I'm very 4-foot toey, like very toe orientated, and that just puts a lot of strain on my lower legs specifically for me. But I mean, everyone in the group has different individual problems. But because of the way I run, that just puts a lot more strain on my lower legs. So typically, I'm always dealing with foot, ankle, and like shin, calf stuff. But from the knee on upwards, I never usually get any issues or anything like that. So for me, it's just strengthening those areas. Just working closely with physios and chiropractors and things like that who know me now and know what I respond well to and what we just developed a plan to strengthen these areas and keep it that way. And that's what I think this year's has helped a lot. I've just done a lot more loading and calf strengthening exercises for me, which I probably should have started years ago.
Right. That's that's interesting. And I think I seem to remember. I think you were doing strength and conditioning when you were a teenager. I don't know if it was you I was chatting to or Ken, one of your first coaches. But we'll come across that when we talk about it. Let's crack on though with the plan. I'm just going to share my screen just to look at your development through the ages. This is the power of 10. But while I'm pulling this up, Marc, do you want to just share with us when you first realised that you could become an international athlete? You know, what was maybe the race or the training or the event that made you think I could become an international athlete?
I think there is different levels to becoming an international athlete. To start with, obviously, I could say I became an international athlete back when I was doing the fellow mountain running. But for me, truly becoming an international athlete was when I graduated university in the US and I won the 2017 NCAA 10,000 meter championships, and that's when I kind of got approached by some agents, and I was like, I didn't really think before then that I could actually make it, but that was when I was like, this thing could actually happen, and be on the world stage, and obviously even just going to the European Championships and World Championships 2017, 2018, 2019, and since 2017, I've not really missed a major championship. So I think the turning point for me was when I was in the NCAA system, and you just get exposed to a whole wide range of caliber athletes in those fields. Many obviously international athletes. So I think that was a turning point for me.
Right. So 2017 would be the time when you thought I can make the grade on the top tier.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Right. But because I guess for me, some of those road races you did as a youngster, I think as a 16, 17-year-old, was it 31 minutes and then 30 minutes you ran?
Yeah, I think I was about 16 and I ran just over 30 minutes for the 10K at Abbey Dash.
Bring that up now. It's way down here somewhere, isn't it? The Abbey Dash was that 11 or 12?
Oh, good question. Yeah, but that was a big race for me as well, and it was a lot of confidence going into that. I just didn't do a lot of work necessarily for that, but that kind of showed me I do have potential, at least on the roads, moving forward. So that was a big one, definitely.
Gotcha. I mean that was a big mark. I remember that race and seeing the result. And I thought, my goodness, that man's flying. But what brought that performance on, or did it just come out of the blue for you?
Yeah, honestly, a little bit out of the blue. Obviously, I'd been training in the past few years before that, but nothing too serious. I did obviously a lot of the fella mountain running, which got my strength pretty high, which is very important, and I still think that helped me go into the NCAA system really well prepared in that sense. So I got a lot of credit to give for that. But yeah, I think it was just not really. I didn't have any pressure to run a certain time. It was just seeing what I could get out of myself on the day. And I wasn't necessarily a big competitive runner. If you look at some of the results before that, I was winning the local stuff, but when you go into the English schools and Northern cross country, for example, a bit further down, I wasn't necessarily the best in the north of England or anything like that. I just had a really good day.
Yeah. Well, I mean that year you're 19th in the English nationals and 7th in the intercounties, which is usually a slightly bigger event. But you certainly had a good endurance base there, and yeah, a hell of a run. So looking at that, I mean, you headed off to America on a scholarship. Was that at 18 or 19?
Yeah, I was 18. Yep.
To remind us where you went. Was it
I was
Tulsa?
University of Tulsa, yeah, in Oklahoma.
So what was that like? You as a 18-year-old, first year at the University of Tulsa. Was that an easy transition?
For me, it was fairly easy. I think more in a sense that it is a very small school, and there wasn't a lot of pressure necessarily on us to perform, especially as a first year going in as a freshman. Whereas I do know a lot of other people who went to bigger schools who were bigger recruits and they got offered bigger scholarships and things like that just because they were well known in the UK. And I obviously looking at those results was not the best guy in the UK coming out to the US. So I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship at the University of Tulsa. Like I said, just because they were a smaller school, it wasn't hugely emphasized that we were expected to perform those first couple of years. We're just more getting used to the system and then really seeing what we can do for the last couple of years or possibly 3 years.
Right.
Versus these bigger schools, whereas you get thrown into the deep end and you're expected to perform right away, just being on a big scholarship, and that's just basically what they expected from you. Whereas I was at a smaller, more private school. So.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm just looking at those results there in your first year, and that was a good transition you'd made. What was the big difference when you went to Tulsa then in that first year? Was it mileage? Was it quality of sessions? Was it strength and conditioning?
Yeah, it was probably strength and conditioning wasn't really a thing. I didn't even really do a lot in my first year, but yeah, definitely mileage. Definitely increased my mileage a lot because back in back in the UK, I wasn't driven by miles at all, and me and my coach were just doing a slow increment of miles and training it year upon year. So, and still, I could say to this day, I probably wasn't running enough back in that 2010, 2011 period. But I think that has helped me now, and it does like enhance the career a little more, and you can hopefully get a few more years out of yourself. But definitely increase the mileage, and yeah, just more intensity session wise, and simply just having people to train with who can push you a little bit rather than doing everything on my own at the local track here in the north of England. So
Yeah. And when you say low mileage, I mean, what did you go from to? As a 17, 18-year-old going to Tulsa as an 18, 19-year-old. Was that?
yeah, I was probably running. Oh, it would vary at home. Not much more than 30 or 40 miles a week, I don't think. It was more just, and I didn't run every day, and I think that was a big change. Was more running every day when I got there, sometimes twice a day. I probably doubled my mileage. I was probably up towards 70 miles in my first year.
Any injuries on that?
Yeah, exactly. Injuries came along as well. So, couple of stress fractures, which is why a lot of people obviously don't go out there. But I think now it's a little different, just because someone who's coming in the top 10 in these races where I was around in the inter-counties, for example, are probably doing a bit more than 30 miles a week now. I just think the game has changed a little bit, and people do a bit more. So yeah, I tried to build up slowly, but I just, at some point in time, you're going to start adopting these miles and accumulating them, and you're going to absorb them, and then it's going to show. And I think that is what happened once I realized what I could handle and where was good for me. And as I got older, I just slowly built 5, 10 miles every year, and then we kind of went onwards from there. But it was a shock that first, like just getting injured for the first time, but it makes you realize and think as to what you were doing. So
Yeah, yeah. And tell us about your first ever NCAA Division One cross country championships. I've just highlighted there where you came 193rd, which
that was my second one. If you scroll down to 2012,
okay.
is there another one in there? There should be.
Yeah, sorry,
93rd.
Louisville. I ran there as well at Louisville.
Yeah. So that I actually had a really good run that day. Training was going really well in that season. And the stress fracture is the 193rd the next year. But I was actually pretty pleased with that. I think I was in the top 5 for the freshmen, the newcomers in that race. So I had a good day then and scored for the team, and we placed 7th as a team as well, which was our highest ever finish at that moment in time. So that was a good experience. It's just the NCAA system is pretty crazy in a sense that the races go extremely hard, and you got to decide if you're going to go with it or just sit back and kind of work through the field a bit. So, but yeah, that was a good run out. And then yeah, that 193rd the year later was pretty bad. So I was injured going into the race, and I just tried to patch things up, and it didn't really go very well. So.
And then 2 years later, I can see you hit 14th there.
14th and then 10th the year after that.
Yeah. Back at Louisville.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, by the time you were coming 10th in the NCAA cross country championships, you had a lot of mileage behind you. You were training consistently, and as one of the top runners in that race, coming 10th, was it still a mad start, or did it feel very much more controllable when you come in 10th in a race?
It just depends on the individuals in the race. It obviously felt more controllable, and I knew I could go out a lot harder than I was maybe used to. But that was one year I do remember this event pretty well. The first mile was running 4:19. There was 2 big individuals in this race going after each other the whole season, and one guy thought the best way to beat his opponent, his rival, was to go out insanely fast and just try and break him early on, and it worked for him actually on this day. But for me, it was just going out hard and knowing I was strong enough to hold on through the 10K race and finishing. Like, to this day, I'm probably still a little disappointed with finishing 10th, honestly, because I thought I could definitely be in the top 5 that day. Maybe I went out a little too hard, but yeah, just knowing I had that mileage and that strength background from the years of cross country over here and the Felon Mountain running, that still would helps a day like that.
Worth knowing there. And was it 15 or 16 that you won the Ncaa title? You're 11.
17.
That's a lot of years at college. How many
Yeah,
years
I was
did you
there
do
for
at Tulsa?
5 years. Yeah.
Of course. So did you redshirt at all?
Yeah, I redshirted. I don't know what year is missing there. Is it 13 or something like that? Oh, maybe
maybe
14.
you just redshirted for one of the sports or one of the disciplines, or was it the whole year?
Yeah, I didn't have a full year of eligibility left in the last year. I think I redshirted indoors once as well, so I just left. I think I just left my outdoor season for my last year, which is that one there. Yeah,
I've got you. And a big breakthrough perform. I say a big breakthrough. It was breakthrough for you because you suddenly thought I could go places with this sport. At 29:01 there. And again, I saw that one streamed, but how was it from your own perspective? Was it a walk in the park or was it hard work?
yeah, I never really felt out of control in that race. Obviously, if you're looking even just to the result above that one, I'd run nearly a minute quicker than we did that day in that year. Just at these obviously quick meets, what people know about Peyton Jordan, Stanford Invitational, and things like that. So, yeah, it was never really a thought where I would get beat that day. I knew going into it, I've had a lot of good training, and the year was going really well. And didn't have any hiccups along the way. And I think I closed my last lap in a 55 that day to win. And that's really all it took that day, and I felt really good. And yeah, just going through the year, and then obviously that year went on and made the World Championship team too. So
good. And yes, I think sometimes people think that when you win a race like the NCAAs, it's you work flipping hard for it. But I know in my experience, when I've won a few races, it's almost an anticlimax because you think it should be harder than that.
you do, yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's not as hard as you envision it to be, then that's fine because you've obviously trained a lot and you've worked hard for that result. So, but yeah, sometimes they are a bit anticlimactic, but that's just the way it is sometimes.
That's why you put the work in. That's why you're
It
consistent.
is, yeah.
You do the hard miles through the winter and on the wet days when nobody else is on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just coming back to these questions, Marc. The next one I got there is what processes have you worked on over the years, and particularly any key things that you worked on at specific ages? I know you said you were low mileage, and you mentioned you looked to mileage at your transitional at 18, 19 going into Tulsa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably the main thing for me was starting off mileage relatively low and then just gradually building until I got to university, whereas I knew I kind of would have had to put a few more miles together just to even make the team and things like that. So that was one thing definitely which helped me a lot. And then just being a bit more diligent about the strength and conditioning things and recovery aspect. Just more so because it's readily available in the US. Going in ice baths and having Normatec and having physio every day readily available is something which I wasn't used to having. And then we had a strength coach as well, who was pretty running orientated, which was nice. Didn't do a whole lot in the first year just because I was just new to the system and didn't want to go overboard with things. And that those two really helped me develop and move forward as an athlete as well.
Any particular things on the S&C that you know was worked on gradually and then extended the second year that you could elaborate on?
Honestly, for me, it was just actually doing S&C rather than not at all. Just any bit of strength and conditioning and being a bit more flexible and recovering well made a massive difference for me. Just because I wasn't used to doing any in the past, so that was one thing. But I didn't. We wouldn't. A lot of it was all body weight and lightweight stuff. It wasn't any power cleans and deadlifts or anything like that. Which I don't think you need to do at too young of an age. I do a little bit more now, deadlifting and squats and things like that with a strength coach we have at the minute. But back then, I don't think it's too necessary. More so just doing body weight stuff and being able to have control while doing so.
So thinking about that, I mean, in reality, if you was the track coach at Tulsa University, it might be that you'd advocate a body weight program for the freshers through June, July, and August before they came in, because that might set them up a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. That would be something. Yeah, it just depends if access to equipment and someone watching over you. But yeah, I think a lot of people tend to do that now anyway. It's just obviously a bit more integrated into a younger athlete's training routine, whereas it wasn't back then. But definitely a good option. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that you got at Tulsa, that they did give you a transitional program to be working on before you actually arrived as a fresher, or did you just turn up?
I did, in regards to training and sessions and things like that. And then I think we got sent some exercises, strength conditioning, core sort of things we could do if we wanted to. But yeah, it was more focused on the actual running rather than the S&C side of things.
Gotcha. Okay. And then just moving up the age group. So, you know, perhaps when you're, closer to 22, 23, any key things that you started to do then? And I'm assuming that there was a bit more input on the strength and conditioning. Obviously,
that was probably the main thing, was the input on strength and conditioning. Yeah, just doing a bit more functional lifting, and really working through the whole chain of the body. Just targeting every area rather than just doing a little bit of core and some push-ups, for example. Just because we have the time to do it once I turn professional. That's what your whole day is planned around, is your training. So we typically just run on a morning and then get the lifting in. Yeah.
Right. And you're saying your functional lifting is particularly below the knee areas, tends to be weak areas. So you'll be particularly functional there. But any other specific things? I mean, is it hip thrusts? Is it front squats, back squats, lunges?
So typically we would get assessed and by the strength coaches and see what works best for us. So for me, a lot of people like the back squat, for example. But I'm a bit different in the squatting area. So I usually use the trap bar instead, the bar which you stand in. So we kind of get assessed in that way, where our range of motion is best and where we're going to benefit the most. So we do a bit of deadlifting, and then a lot of it is like explosive movements as well in regards to the leg aspect, and a lot of single leg explosive exercises too.
Gotcha. Good. Great. Thanks for that, Marc. Pushing on. How do you overcome challenges of specific aspects of difficult training? I don't know, which parts of training do you not enjoy? I suppose as a professional, you've got to be professional, but usually there's an area that people don't enjoy. What's your weak area?
I mean, the area I don't enjoy it's not actually the running, the hills, whatever. For me, it's the recovery side of things, but more so, let's talk about the running. Because I was obviously a lot better on the country and the fell and mountain running, that's where I kind of had my success as a junior, just because I wasn't very quick and gifted on the track. That's kind of why I went down path. So for me, the challenge was the speed work all the time for me. I was obviously jumping into the Bauman Track Club, who had these guys who could run 3:32 in a 1500, for example, and that just wasn't something I was capable of doing at all. And it has developed over the years, and my finishing and closing speed is great now, which was something I had to overcome. Just was being able to. You have to be able to understand that everyone always has a little bit of a weakness, and that was mine. And I really did get exposed when I joined the group about that. My sprinting mechanics and form just wasn't great.
So when you say your sprint mechanics and form wasn't great, what have you done to improve those? Because clearly you've improved out of this world. Because as a 16, 17-year-old, as you say, you're quite an average track runner, but these days you can hold your own over 1500 with some of the best runners.
Yeah, I think that for me was obviously getting the strength and conditioning side of things inputted a lot more, and just actually running more at a good pace, just cleaning up my form and trying to be more efficient. Just the more running you do, the more natural it becomes. And I think that combined with the S&C really came together for me after a couple of years. So
ultimately what you're saying is that the functional strength and conditioning work actually allowed your limbs to align with a cleaner form rather than doing specific drills to pull that out. Would that be fair, or are we doing specific?
Yeah, that would definitely be fair, because I wasn't big on drills, and I still aren't today. That was just something which I just wouldn't really do. You don't really see many people lining up for these fell mountain races doing drills before they get going. It's just not really a thing. So yeah, that was probably the biggest turnaround for me, was just combining those two things. And I just think put in a situation where you don't want to get embarrassed and you don't want to look stupid in front of these people. Because at the end of the day, you're part of the team, and you don't want to get dropped in certain sessions all the time. So that was another thing, just having bodies around and being able to chase people a lot more.
Good. And I'm just trying to think now. Next, what have we got up here? Your coaching. So I think on your Power of 10, you've got 2 or 3 coaches listed there. Ncaa from the early days, Steve Gully up till 2017, and now with Jerry Schumacher with the professional team in Portland. So any standout things about each of those coaches that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so obviously my first coach in the club system, Richmond and Zetland, who I still run for today, Ken Harker, was a big influence there for me. Spotted I had potential. So I was just running in the local junior group before that, and then he kind of handpicked me, and we moved forward together with a couple of other people too. And we just had a philosophy of just doing little on little every year to get a little bit better and not burn out. And it was like more of a time-based system than mileage. So that was what really worked for me, and for him, we didn't put any big emphasis on things. We just wanted to have a lot of enjoyment, and that was the main thing. But also, for me, enjoyment was being competitive. So that's where we worked on things together, and just had this slow, gradual build up throughout my younger years.
So you're probably competing maybe 2 or 3 times per month on a regular basis. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that would probably be about right. And then just as I would move forward onto new coaches, those competitions would become less and less and less.
Right. And Steve Gully, was he the track coach at Tulsa?
He was, yeah, and he still is today. Yep.
Yeah.
So it seemed like I ended up having a really good fit at Tulsa because of the nature of the coaching, or his philosophy of coaching, which was kind of longer aerobic intervals, and rather than than the speed development, and that is why I did struggle with the speed development moving forth into the professional scene, just because we didn't really do it a lot in university. But because of my background, where Ncaa helped me a lot was the aerobic side of things. That fell great into the position of Tulsa, and then from Tulsa onwards to the Bowerman Track Club. I think the best way to be is to be strength and aerobic oriented, and you can always add speed on top of that. So I felt like I had the right credentials from one coach onto the next, and then further on to my professional coach today.
Gotcha. And I think, like you said at the beginning, that now the target is to do a mileage that's manageable for you. Don't get injured. Stay consistent. Perhaps be robust enough to maybe go a little faster in the intervals and the reps as you target, as we say, 26 minutes over 10k. And I expect that's going to include 12 minutes over 5k as well. Would that be right?
That would be the plan. Yeah, of course it would. No, that's definitely right. Just for me, I noticed we did, even a year ago now, in the build up towards the Olympic year, we did take a little increase in training and put those paces up a little bit, even in the fall base training period. So that just all went ahead and enabled me to run 27:10, for example, and 13:05. So I think even just moving it onwards a little bit this year, nothing too crazy. Maybe it's 5 seconds per mile or something like that, which isn't too crazy. Could really lead to that 26-minute barrier and 27-minute barrier and 13-minute barrier.
Gotcha. No, and yeah, that'll be exciting times ahead. Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, thanks.
No, well, you're the one that's doing the work. I'm just enjoying it on the screen.
Yeah.
You keep working your socks off. I'll not be complaining. I guess one of the topical conversations that you've probably come across already would be the shoes and the spikes. And while I think it's acknowledged that they're helping people go a little bit faster, I think the interesting thing for me is how much they help you to recover.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things which people do forget about a little bit. Just being able to recover quicker and stack these sessions upon sessions after session is a really good thing. And it's just the way the sport is now, and obviously people have to accept it whether they like it or not, just because everyone's wearing them, and you're basically at a disadvantage if you don't. But everyone's obviously different. Some people respond a lot better than others. Some people might be getting a 1% boost, and someone might be getting a 6 or a 7% boost, and that is obviously massive, especially at the level I am today. But yeah, like you said, I think the recovery thing, a lot of people do neglect a bit, and it is really helpful when we are doing these long track sessions in spikes, and you can run a 10k in these new spikes, for example, and come back and still feel pretty fresh the next day because the calves just aren't beat up as bad as they normally would be. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think you said that right at the beginning, that one of the key things that made a difference was your ability to improve your recovery, through a variety of means. And in the last few years, one of the ways to recover is the footwear that you wear, and if that's helping you recover better, let's bring it on. And ultimately, we are seeing performances improve, and certainly your performances are right up there. And hopefully they're going to continue in going right there, because you're young enough, but to be heading in the right direction. Paris sounds like a peak. The peak.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah. And then maybe go on to the longer distances for Los Angeles after that.
Gotcha. Okay, so that sounds like you still got your mind on 5k and 10k at.
Probably the 10k would be the main focus. Yeah, coming up in the next 3 years, and then maybe onto the marathon after that. A bit more road orientated. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's usually where the old men go, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, I will be old by that point. So.
Yeah. And
old in the running terms, in the running world.
And then the other one is, will we ever return to the mountains?
Good question. I do envision maybe myself doing a lot more ultra trail sort of stuff after my big competitive days are over. For example, Yorkshire Three Peaks, I'd like to get that record, and things of that nature. Just a bit more local and a bit something which I can work towards with not having a lot of stress upon. So yeah, maybe so. To answer your question, I might be back on the mountains and the fells a little bit, but we'll just have to see how the body is after another couple of Olympic cycles.
Yeah, no, understandably, and I think it's probably a sound plan, as they say. Probably there's probably. I'll go to this final question, which would be: was there any events you wish you'd tried? And I know that you had a pop at the steeplechase. I've not seen anything for the heptathlon.
Yeah,
I can see triple jump there.
Triple jump. There might be a javelin as well.
Yeah,
Javelin throw 800. There it is. Yeah. That was more so just because when in school you had to do a track and a field event for these certain competitions we did. Obviously not tall enough to be a high jumper or a triple jumper for that matter. I've always liked the look of the pole vault actually.
Okay.
In a sense, I wish I kind of tried it, but I'm just too skinny and frail for that when I was a younger kid. So I don't think that would have gone down too well.
Well, if we get you over for the Athlone International indoor meeting in February 2022, I'll do some pole vaulting with you.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll hold you to that.
I'm actually doing some pole vault tonight. Yeah, just coaching beginners, and I guess that I think you'd qualify as a beginner.
Yeah. That I need the first lessons definitely in the beginner category.
Yeah, for sure. In the sandpit, so it's a soft landing. Just on the final point, because I know at this stage there'll be a lot of teenagers going to be watching this, and they're going to be thinking, "Will I go to the America like Marc Scott and come out of it as well as Marc Scott did?" Any advice for people applying to university in America based on your experiences?
Yeah,
what they should do?
For me, I'd definitely say go. You got to take the opportunities while you can, and if you get the chance to go, then why not? Because for me, it was always a sense. If you don't like it, you can always come home. You're not obligated to stay by any means. So if you got it and you did one week or 3 months, a couple of terms, and you didn't like it, you can always come home and then apply to a university in the UK if you still want to do that. But I just think you get so much more opportunity out there. The facilities are a lot better. The weather is typically better depending on where you choose to go to. And you just have a lot more teammates and just a sense of belonging and a big like team environment, which was really nice, which I never really got. I don't think you'd really get that in the UK because everything in the US is guided around the sport, whereas in the UK people just kind of pick and fit in where they can in regards to lectures or whatever it may be. So I think if you get the opportunity, I definitely take it with both hands and go after it. And if you can't, or you think you might be a little homesick for a few years, then the opportunity now is ever present to go and do your masters in the US. If not, so if you get the feeling you want to stay at home for a couple more years, that's also like an option, and then go on and do 2 or 3 years in the US when you're a bit more developed and you can handle the NCAA system, just with an extra 2 or 3 years under your training in the UK. Because that's obviously what a lot of people struggle with is you go in as an 18-year-old and you might be competing against 25, 26-year-old Kenyan athletes, for example. So there's a whole wide range of body types out there and age groups you have to just integrate, and it's just all one, the NCAA. So for me, that's one thing which I seem to handle pretty well, was competing against these older guys. And everyone's on a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or you are 26. So
Yeah.
that's my advice, is take the opportunity if you get presented with one, and make the most of it.
Make the most of it, like
Exactly.
Marc Scott did. I think Tom Farrell was telling me when I chatted to him and he was near you, not the same place. Is he at Oklahoma?
Oklahoma State, yeah, about 90 minutes down the road, yeah.
And he was saying that sometimes the first years come in and run themselves into the ground trying to compete with the older seniors. Did you have any experience of that when you were at Tulsa?
Yeah, I think it was different definitely with Oklahoma State back then because they were a big powerhouse school and they were expected to win national titles year upon year, whereas Tulsa wasn't at one point. It's funny because the roles have now reversed with Tulsa and Oklahoma State. Tulsa would usually get beat by Oklahoma State all the time, but now it's changed a lot, and Tulsa are now the ones fighting for a national championship. But yeah, as Tom would say, the emphasis on the kids going to Oklahoma State was a lot different to the kids going to Tulsa, just because of what they'd done in the past and what they expected to do. So at Tulsa, it was more fit in and find your way and a bit more guidance. Whereas I think at Oklahoma State, you're probably just thrown into the group and see what you can get out of yourself. But I think if you find the right fit for yourself, then that wouldn't be an issue. But there's always cases of people running themselves into the ground.
Yeah. And just thinking about in the UK and Ireland, you know, their top universities, how can they compete with what America have got to offer? Any suggestions there?
Simply, I don't think they can. I'm actually still a student right now. I'm a master's student at Manchester Met University. And yeah, they have facilities and things like that, but nothing in the UK compares to the US at all. Just with the amount of money being pumped into the NCAA system, it's quite astonishing, really. I remember when I was looking to stay in the UK or go out to the US. I wasn't obviously like a very good running back. I was good, but I wasn't great back then when I was looking to go to the US. And some universities in the UK wouldn't even give me a free gym membership. Whereas I could go to the US on a full scholarship and have everything at my feet and get my whole university paid for. So that was a big no-brainer for me. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't think there's any comparison between a UK and a US university.
Yeah, no, it's a challenging one. It's a challenging one, and yeah, I think governing bodies sometimes worry that people are heading to the US, but you know, would like them to stay here, and how do we get them to stay here? But I think, like you say, I know probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, I heard about a $10 billion deal that was done with Pac-10 athletics, and although it included, you know, baseball and basketball, the money, the TV money, was actually shared to all the sports, and that's one of the. It's almost like a communist system that they share the money with all the sports. Even though, you know, the drawing sports are your basketball and your baseball and your football.
And football, yeah, it's only they're the only three sports which make any money, so they make basically all the money for the whole athletic program. So the money football and basketball make funds the cross country and track teams, which is good. So I just think that's where all your opportunities are going to come from is through that system. So
yeah, no, it's a tough one for other nations to follow, and hence some of the best athletes from around the world, you know, have been heading to the USA the last 20 plus
exactly,
years.
yeah, it's not just from the UK. If you look at the Olympics, how many of those athletes came through the NCAA system? It'd be a lot. Like, it'd be interesting to know the actual stats. There's probably some out there, but
Yeah,
I'd say you'd maybe be looking at 50% of the athletes at the Olympics would come through the NCAA system.
yeah, no, it wouldn't surprise me. The one question I didn't ask you, so I'll just make it the final question now, is we didn't talk about your taper days or your taper week, you know, because sometimes I know athletes, they've got the routines and they stick to the routines, but then on a taper week, how do you manage it by not doing too much?
Yeah, for me, I've never been big into tapering. Honestly, I've always kind of run better just sticking to what I know and doing a similar sort of mileage. In fact, the intensity of sessions might be reduced a little bit, but I still get the volume in. And then it might be as simple as just reducing 5-10 minutes for a run, for example, throughout the week rather than just in one given day. So for me, that was never really an issue. I didn't struggle to taper or anything like that because I felt like I ran better off what I kind of knew to do. But just naturally now, obviously before the Olympics and World Championships, there is a taper going on because we've worked so hard throughout the year. But it isn't something I would struggle to do. And it's just reducing intensity and maybe knocking a few miles out of the week.
So in terms of that, I mean, through a big block of work, I'm guessing you're going to do, anything from 10 to 16k of reps, and in the week of, the 10k time trial when you did 27:10. I'm guessing it wouldn't be quite that volume or that intensity.
No, exactly. Yeah, it'd be more of a. If the race was a Saturday, for example, we'd do a little bit of stuff on the Tuesday, and then just easy running from there on out into the race. A standard run for me is 70 minutes, whereas the start of the week I might be doing 70, but by the end of the week, the day before the race, I'll only be doing 35 minutes as an example, and just one easy session on the Tuesday, which wouldn't be anywhere near 10 to 16k of reps. It would be more like 3 or 4k, something like that.
Right, okay. And yes, so really, you're doing kind of 40 to 50% of your usual volume, or your block volume of session on that taper week. Whereas I'm thinking maybe a month before you might be doing 10k or 12k of reps.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably volume of reps, but not obviously volume of miles during the week. Still, if you're running a 10k, that's already obviously 6 miles there. So the mileage might reduce by 15-20%, something like that.
Yeah.
But nothing much more.
Got you. No, that's great. That's great. And does it drive you crazy when you've got nothing to do?
No, I've actually got pretty good at it. I don't mind just sitting around and doing nothing anymore.
Well,
It did it first. I am a student, yeah, exactly. So that takes my mind off things a little bit, and I also do a little bit of coaching now too. So I help people in that sense. I probably help around 10, 15 people at the minute, just kind of ticking over doing that a little bit as well, just to in a way give back to the sport a little bit and kind of help people out. So.
And is that in the USA or is that in Yorkshire?
It's actually a bit of both. Some people in the US and some people at home, and then I've got like my brother, for example, who I coach, and a few other people, in the UK. So it varies. That keeps me busy along with being a student as well. Yeah.
Good. No, it's great, and hopefully we'll see the next Marc Scott under your wing.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah.
Well, just who knows? You've certainly got the experience. You've certainly you've been through the routines.
Exactly. I've been through every stage of it now, so I kind of can put things together pretty well, and just obviously, replicating from my experiences.
Brilliant. That is absolutely spot on, that, Marc. Thanks ever so much for joining me and sharing your reflections. And the best of luck with your winter preparation. I know you say you got 10k in Manchester at the weekend, and you're off to London to do a bit of pacemaking there, and then it'll be back to the USA for a bigger block of work. And,
a bigger block, yeah, exactly.
And then
I'm looking forward to it.
See you on the podium at one of the championships next year. Yeah,
that'd be nice. Get a medal. Yeah. Maybe Europeans or Commonwealth Games, something like that. Yeah, that would be nice.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck with that, Marc. And again, thanks very, very much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for chatting.
Brilliant. Cheers, Marc.
All right. Thank you very much.